It's Thursday, your last official day of work. Tomorrow will be a catch-up day, and I do plan to post a goodbye video or something like that. So here we go. All right, so I have, I think, 11 problems for today, so we'll just try to get through as many as we can. Worst case scenario, just read the word problems at the end. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about solving radical equations. You're definitely going to see this again, so definitely learn this. Okay, so a radical equation is just literally an equation that has a variable in the radical. So a radical expression, there's no equal sign here, so these are just square root something. A radical functions, things you graph. A radical equation has an x on the inside and it is an equation, whereas not a radical equation, there's no x on the inside, so this is just a straight up equation that happens to have messy numbers hanging out. So it's got to have that x on the inside. And to do it, you literally isolate the radical and square both sides. It's a very easy process. So I'm going to show you several times how to do it, and then a couple of the trickier sort of things. Okay, so here, isolate that square root by adding 4. So you get 2 root x equals 4. Get rid of that 2 by dividing by 2. You're going to get root x equals 2. And then to undo square rooting, you're going to square. So square both sides, you get x equals 4. Okay, you are going to need to check your answer every single time. I'm going to show you how to do it in the calculator most of the time, but just at least check your answer, okay? So plugging in a 4, we get 2 square root 4 minus 4 equals 0. We know square root of 4 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. Like it's going to work out most of the time, but there will be times that it does not work out. All right, and then reviewing that graphing actually from yesterday, we know that this function is set equal to 0, set equal to y, moved down 4 units and stretched. So moved down 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then instead of the 1, 3, 5 pattern sideways, it's going to be stretched, whatever. So this is going to still be over 1, but then doubled. And then it's going to be over 1, 2, 3, but then it's going to be going up, doubled. Okay, and how do I know this actually proves my answer? Well, because x equals 4 is where it crosses, and x equals 4 is my answer. Don't forget that your intercepts and your zeros and your roots and all those things are the same answer. We're still solving all those guys for where it crosses the x-axis. Okay, so just jumping right in, and then we'll do some crazier ones. Obviously, you guys are honor, so I do want to get to the really crazy ones. Okay, again, isolate my radical, so move that 3 over. Divide by 12. And then square both sides. And if I'm going too fast, I apologize. I do have time to afford to slow down. And you get x equals 1/16. Okay, so there's that guy. Let me go ahead and pause and get my calculator. All right, 12 square root 1/16 minus 3. Does that equal to 0? Yep. So as long as, make sure when you're typing it in, obviously you would do it on the emulator. Most of you guys don't have your own calculator, but when typing in, make sure you're careful about what's actually under the radical and then move it over. Also, we know the square root of 1/16 is 1/4. 12 times 1/4 is 3. 3 minus 3 is 0. So you can easily do it by hand, just as easy as in the calculator. It's all the same stuff. All right, again, radical is isolated, so that's good to go. Go ahead and square both sides. When you square a square root, it just drops off, and you're left with just the insides. 9. Okay? Multiply by 4, so x equals 36. I'll just go ahead and check this guy by hand. He's just as easy as plugging it in the calculator. Do these things equal? That's a question mark. Terrible question mark. Square root of 36 is 6. Square root of 4 is 2. Is 6 halves equal to 3? Yeah, that guy works. Okay? Over here, go ahead and move that 3 over. So you're going to get square root 3x equals negative 3, if I could write that. I'm going to square both sides, square both sides. Don't forget when you're squaring a negative that you put it in parentheses. So you're going to get 3x. Again, just literally drop off the radical and the squaring. They just cancel each other out. And you get 9. Okay? Divide by 3, you get x equals 3. All right. Go ahead and plug that in. So square root, and I'm just going to do it by hand again because it's just as easy. Okay, square root of, well, 3 times 3 is 9, or this is a group of size 3, whatever. Square root of 9 is 3. Is 3 plus 3 equal to 0? No. So this guy actually does not work, and we actually have a word for that. I meant to write it in beforehand. That is called extraneous. An extraneous solution is when it looks like it worked. I did the math, it worked out, but then when you actually plug it back in, it does not work. You have to check your answers on these because square roots are tricky. When you're squaring both sides, you're making negatives turn into positives, things like that. So you got to be careful. So this is not the answer. X equals 3 is an extraneous solution, but really the answer is there is no solution. And the reason is, if you're looking at it mathematically, anything plus 3, is that going to equal 0? Well, no, I'd have to have a negative 3 here. But there's no way to make a square root pop out a negative number. So there's nothing I could plug in that would force that to be a 0. So generally you can see if you end up with a negative on that side, that's usually pretty much a clear sign. But there are going to be obviously more complicated questions that are not as obvious. All right, so 2 more of the basic type, then I'll show you the one that has 2 radicals, and then I'll show you the more honorsy type. Also, I'm sorry I go so fast, I just want to finish, but I think we do have plenty of time, so I'm going to slow down. All right, so squaring both sides. Again, the radical is isolated, so square, square. You just get straight up what's inside there, and then that's 16. Add that over, you get x equals 25. Coolie. Double check that, even though I didn't put a little check spot for you. 25 minus 9 is 16. Square root of 16 is 4. That guy works. And so checking it can be just as quick as just looking at it. Okay, this one, 2 square root x plus 6 equals, plus 29 equals 21. Okay, minus 29, you get 2x plus 6 equals negative 8. Divide by 2, you get x plus 6 equals negative 4. Hopefully, right now you can just see there is no way any square root is ever going to give me a negative 4. No way, it's not going to happen. Even though you're not taking the EOC did often force you to solve this problem and then say, what are the extraneous solutions? So you would need to actually solve this guy out. So squaring both sides. And you would need to say that 10 is an extraneous solution, meaning that 10 is the answer you get, but it doesn't actually work. This is a no solution, and I'll go ahead and prove it real quick. Plugging in 10. 10 plus 6 is 16. Square root of 16 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 plus 29 is not 21. Okay, so there's no way that's going to work out. So 10 was an extraneous solution, but your actual answer, like if you're doing it on your quiz here in a minute, is going to be no solution. But I may say, what is an extraneous solution? So what answer did you get, but doesn't actually work? Okay, all right, so moving on to a new type. If you have 2 radicals, you're going to do the exact same thing. I want to square both sides, but if I currently square this as is, I'm squaring a binomial. And remember when we have 2 terms, you need to multiply first term times that and this times that. Oops, sorry, it's a little off screen. You got to multiply all those guys out and get 4 terms. So if you squared this as is, you'd create all this garbage, which is not good. And that does happen sometimes, especially in Algebra 2. You're going to see some of that stuff. But for now, we're just going to move the radical over so that I have 2 isolated radicals. And then when I square both sides, that's a 2. It just is going to drop off both of those radicals. So these guys are my favorite because they're the easiest. You don't have to really do anything. You don't even square any numbers. You literally go, okay, cool. The insides equal the insides. Minus that x, you get 4 equals x minus 1. Add that 1, you get 5 equals x. Now these guys are a little harder to see just right off the bat, that that's an extraneous solution. So x equals 5, you have to prove it. Okay, 5 plus 4 is square root of 9. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 minus 1 is square root of 9. Okay, so square root of 9 is 3 minus 3 equals 0. That guy does work. But these guys definitely have more room for just straight up doing whatever they want to, and then you don't know the answer's obviously wrong. Like this one was obviously wrong. Okay, moving on down. This guy, ooh, trickery. So I've kind of just straight up dropped off this. I mean, these are easy. Just move one over, you're done. Okay, so you don't need any more examples of that. So this one here, if you want to rewrite it, it might help you. When doing so, note that this x to the 1/2 is the only thing being touched by that 1/2. So this is actually a 2. And then we know 1/2 really means square root. And then we know that that entire thing is being square rooted. So we have this guy. Okay, I cannot get rid of that 2. If I divide by 2, I'm just going to be bouncing that 2 around. So I have done the best I can to isolate my radicals, so I'm just going to go ahead and square both sides. But when you square the side, make sure you square the entire quantity. What this means is you're squaring the 2 and you're squaring the square root of x. So 2 squared is 4, square root of x squared is just x. Over here you just get the insides, which is nice. So not too bad, but that does trick people sometimes. Okay, moving this over, you get a negative 2x equals negative 1. Dividing by negative 2, you get x equals 1/2. Okay, plugging this in, I'm just going to pause and plug in the calculator. All right, so plugging it in, I just plugged in 1/2 into this original equation here. So 2 times 1/2 to the 1/2 power, and then 6 times 1/2 minus 1 to the 1/2 power. As long as your decimals are the same, then you are good to go. So this guy is the real solution, and he's not extraneous, but that was just a little easier to prove for me in the calculator. I mean, that could have been an easy exercise by itself. Okay, so now with rubber meets the road, this is what you guys get, and then the regular class did not get. So we can have variables on the inside and the outside, and these are just more fun because we like a challenge, right? That's why we're in honors. Okay, I've isolated my radical best I can. This guy's still hanging out, nothing I can do about it. It's definitely worse to move him over and then again have that sort of binomial situation. I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and square both sides as is. So I'm going to end up with 6 minus x equals x squared. Hey, our entire quadratic chapter is now applicable. So you're going to go ahead and do whatever you want to. You can either use the square root method, quadratic formula, complete the square, factoring, whatever you want. But I see there's 3 terms, so I can't use square root method. I'm going to go ahead and set equal to 0. That's almost always what you're going to do anyway. Most of you guys would either factor or use the quadratic formula. Don't forget when you change things over, you change their signs. All right, I'm going to go ahead and factor. It's easy enough. It's x method. What multiplies to be negative 6 and adds to be 1? Well, it's definitely going to be a 2 and a 3 and a negative 2. So 0 equals x minus 2, x plus 3. Don't forget you do the opposite. So x equals 2 and x equals negative 3. Well, now we have 2 solutions to check. So you're just going to plug in both answers. Plugging in 2. 6 minus 2 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. 2. Cool, that one works. Plugging in negative 3. 6 minus negative 3, 6 plus 3 is 9. Square root of 9 equals negative 3. No. Again, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, the negative answer will be the extraneous solution, and therefore the answer is only the positive route. But again, math can do whatever it wants. As long as you're following the rules, you do need to check both of those answers. I'll come back and do that word problem. I do want to get to this other sort of extreme honors question here. Okay. So again, isolated the radical. It's much worse to move these things over. I can't do it. So this is the best I can do. So I'm going to go ahead and square both sides. There's a bunch of stuff here, so I got to square that entire side. Left side's going to be 2x squared plus x minus 10. Right side is going to be that x minus 2 times x minus 2 jazz. Don't forget, you multiply the first, the last, and double the middle sort of thing. So I get x squared, I get a minus 2x, and a minus 2x, and a plus 4. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just clean everything up and move it over to one side. So moving this over, I'm just going to get x squared. This is a negative 4x. Moving that over, I'm going to get a positive 5x. Positive 4, moving that over, I'm going to get a negative 14. Okay, from here, do what you want. I'm going to go ahead and factor. What multiplies to be negative 14 adds to be 5, definitely a 7 and a 2. And a negative 2. So x plus 7, x, that was terrible. I was obviously looking away when I did that. Okay, so solving both these guys, x equals negative 7, x equals positive 2. And you have to check your answers. Most likely this guy's not going to work, but there's no guarantee. It just depends on the craziness on this side. If this had been maybe a plus something or whatever, it might have worked. But I can just see it's not going to work because if I plug in a negative 7 minus 2 is negative 9. There's no way anything is going to be equal to a negative 9. There's no way this answer is correct, guaranteed. Okay, but this one could also be incorrect. I don't know. So plugging in a 2, 2 minus 2 is 0. Okay, you can have a square root equal to 0, so let's check it out. Okay, so 2 squared is 4, and then 4 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 2 is 10. 10 minus 10 is 0. Square root of 0 is equal to 0. That's cool. That guy is fine. You actually do get one answer there. That works.